Good morning. It is, let's see, the 20th of December. I always have to look. It's Tuesday. Welcome again to Morning Oasis. I hope that you had a good night's sleep, a good day. Personally, I did not sleep so well last night. It was hard. I just couldn't get to sleep. I was up till like 1 and I woke up, I don't know, at least a dozen times throughout the night to go to the bathroom or just because I woke up. And I was up at like 7, way too early. So yeah, last night was kind of an odd night. I wonder how many others of you have experienced that last night. Today we are going to be talking about facing the finger in the mirror, right? So what does that mean? We'll talk more about it later, but I wanted to just open the topic up and get you starting to think about, what is it, how do you experience the people in your life? How do you experience walking through your life? How often do you find yourself pointing a finger at somebody? I'm sorry, I'm just sitting in an open window and it's really bright. So I'm going to start by pulling cards. Let's see, we have Kathy, you're the first to pull. Let me check using my compass. What's the best deck to give the best message to Kathy? Interesting. Oh, my own tarot deck. I never think to use the tarot deck because I use that all the time. I was just thinking of using my oracle. Right, good morning, Andrea. And good morning, boss. Let's see. And Andrea, you're going to get a card pulling too. Let's see. But this one's for Kathy. Oh, Kathy, you got the 10 of Wands. Oh, morning, Alex. So Kathy, the 10 of Wands. Notice she's this beautiful ant, but she's got this whole city on her back. So you're kind of at the end of a process of building and growing. You've been doing a lot of that. You have built a whole city that you have a sort of responsibility over. Usually this card comes up when somebody is trying to figure out, how do I manage all of this that I have created and built around myself? How do I manage it? What do I do with it? How do I grow? How do I, it often comes up as a reminder, it's time to delegate. You don't actually have to hold the entire, the light's really bright from outside today, even though it's overcast. You don't have to hold the whole city on your back all the time alone. It's important as you build a city that you recognize who else you're building it with. So let's see, that's Kathy. And let's see, Chris. I don't think I saw you come in yet, but I know you're also on my list for a reading. And you may hear my husband and son because they're both home for a Christmas winter break, basically. Let's see. Chris. Messenger oracles want to talk to you. Okay. My husband is on a mission today because our cat has fleas. And we've been trying to treat it with DE for the last week, and it's not been working. And now the fleas are in other parts of the house, not just the cat. So he's upstairs washing everything. God bless him. Laundry's not my forte. All right, let's see. So, Chris, what's the best, most supportive message we can get for you today? So, Chris, you got heed the messengers. Now, it looks like you're getting a lot of messages. You're getting a lot of synchronizations, a lot of little signs and cues. You're being shown and guided. You may even be quite heavy-handedly being guided along your path right now. It's time to just let that happen. It's time to listen to these messages, to the guidance that's coming through for you. It's for you, It's let go. Drop into it. What is it saying? How is it supporting you? It's time to step into that state of allowance. And that kind of makes me also want to say, this is one of those, oh, good morning, Maria. This is one of those times, one of those cards, excuse me, that in this time is probably applicable to all of you who are watching this. This is the time where we are being communicated with all the time by our guides and messengers. We are being given constant opportunities to step into a deeper state of allowance, to step into a deeper state of awareness. We have to listen to those signs because that's what we've been asking for. Most of us, especially people who work with me, tend to feel like they're lost until they start listening to those signs. They feel like they don't fit in their own community, their own culture. Their value systems are different from those around them until they start tuning into that. And by tuning into the guidance, you recognize, oh, my soul. It's so much more than just being here in this, forgive the term, but a lot of you use it, meat suit. We are so much more than that. And when we tap into listening to our guidance and allow it to show us what, and guide us down that path that we came here to walk, we lose that sense of being lost and we feel found because we have found ourselves. Our guidance is our higher self talking to us. Our highest self is God, right? So bringing that guidance into your daily life, allowing it to open up and be there for all of you is the biggest message that I think is good for all of you, but particularly Chris. Thank you for requesting so we could get that message out there. And Andrea, let's see. The Thoth Tarot want to talk to you. So much stuff on my shelf. Oh, no, not the Thoth Tarot, excuse me. My Tarot. This is my older deck. That's what happens when you have so many card decks. They kind of, hence the desire to create a space where I can use them. Justify it. How often do you create something just so you can justify something that is? Let's see, Andrea, your cards. That wasn't a question directly to you, Andrea, just a general question. All right. A lot of people ask me, how do I handle cards, and do I shuffle them, or how do I shuffle them, or how do I draw? The cards tell me. Sometimes they want to be shuffled and get cleared out. Sometimes they're like, we're good. Just pull one. Andrea, this is a perfect card for all of us right now. Let's see, can I get it? There we go. It's the Fool. I think we didn't, this came up not that long ago. Yes, Maria, I still have time. Yeah, Abbas, our consciousness, we could say that it's our higher selves. I think of us more like a long strand of consciousness with a focal point, this bright light of focus. And that focal point shifts and changes. So sometimes when we're really inside of ourselves and moving along in the day and we're just totally embodying ourselves and we lose the sense of anything else, that is where our consciousness is at. That doesn't mean that it's not still connected to that highest state of consciousness. When you are consciously and intentionally connecting in with the collective consciousness, that also sometimes called a galactic consciousness, you start to see how it is that all of these things can be true at once, that we can both be here and present in this state, in this moment, in this time, and also be connected to this highest consciousness self that is connected to all the other selves, all of our other expressions, all the multiplicity of us. We are not just expressing in this life strand. We're actually expressing in multiple strands of expression. Past lives are not actually past, right? They're current lives. They're current lives that are being that are already all played out and are being experienced in a linear fashion as we in this physical expression experience life, experience living. So where we focus is where we show up. You know, so when people start saying, okay, we're doing past life readings or working on another life, past lifetime, what they're actually doing is just, here's your strand, and they're going, okay, look, you've got this other strand right here that's coming off your main self, and it's another expression, and it's kind of sticking in, and it's messing with this expression, so we're going to work over here. Well, once you learn to switch between the time lines or the expression lines, then it all seems to make a lot more sense. So can we say that our consciousness is our higher self? Our consciousness is where we're focused, I believe. Our higher self is completely interconnected and interlinked in everything else. It's just how in tune are we with that? So Abbas says, Pluto says we're replicas of the real truth. Do you agree? He says we are copies of the original, from which is the mind of God. So I don't think we're actually copies. I view it more like we're pieces. So let's just for a moment play with the concept that let's think of God, source, in the beginning as this orange, right? We'll just think of it as an orange for a minute, just to play. Now that orange, when it decided that it wanted to, have another orange to play with, or however you want to put it, it had to unpeel and open itself up and then start breaking itself apart into pieces. Now, we think in terms of a limited amount. We live in the physical world, so there's finite resources. Energetically, it's an abundance system. It's infinite resources, right? So source starts to divide itself. Now, depending on where your consciousness recognizes itself to begin, you may be able to begin at the segment piece, or you may be able to remember all the way back to being a part of that whole orange. Or maybe your expression is a pulp, one of the pulp fibers in that segment of orange. Perhaps. So it becomes about where do you identify yourself. Now, is that pulp fiber a copy of the whole? No, it's a piece of the whole. It's a part of the whole. It's one with the whole, right? If you were to look at on the table a whole orange and then start breaking it up, we wouldn't say that this pulp is separate from its part of that orange that we've removed. It's divided itself away. Inside the orange, as a part of the orange, it still was divided up. It still had its membrane. It still had its piece that recognized itself as itself. But that didn't occur until Source decided to divide, to start creating these segments, creating these pieces. So I hope that answers your question, Abbas. I don't think that we're copies of God at all. I think that we're a part of, and as we begin developing a daily practice of connecting in with that part, connecting in with that consciousness, riding our stream or our strand of expression all the way to the home, to the heart of Source, which is one of the exercises that I do in classes with people and working with people in sessions, is getting them back into that heart of Source space. So when you start to do that, you start to feel that wholeness, feel that sense of purpose. Like, I bet that little pulp fiber feels so good inside the wedge, held secure, packed up with its little buddies, juice intact, shielded by this shell of peel that allows the juice to stay inside and ripen, right? So like, it's all part of the whole. Okay, Andrea, back to your card. So the Fool, right? So right now, this is another one of those cards, and this is kind of why I do the card pulls in the morning, or in the beginning, because I believe that the more we can see how collectively we're going through the same thing, how a card I pulled for Andrea is totally and completely relevant to every single one of you right now, then that also helps us to reinforce unity consciousness, helps us to reinforce and go, I recognize that you need to embrace the Fool in you a little bit right now. I can see that. I know that, right? So So that's the cool thing about doing this way, and just observe people around you as you operate through your day after seeing what were the card pulls for this day, what was the information shared. Remember, how do we delegate? How do we share the responsibility for what we're building? Are you building? Are you trying to build, or are you trying to deconstruct, or have you built something already that is a bit of a burden on your back? We're all kind of looking at, ooh, I need to shuck off that. That's too much. And what was the other one? The signs. We are all being communicated with by the signs right now, and it is time for us all to play the part of the fool. Now, one of the things that our modern culture teaches us about being foolish, we use that term like it's a bad word. Like that's almost the worst thing that you could do. For some people, to be considered foolish is the worst thing you could do. It's a total discreditation of everything that you are inspired by and you follow. Personally, I love the Fool card. Why? Because the Fool is outside of the whole system of learning. She's not concerned with what she knows. She's not concerned with what there is to know. She's just experiencing. She doesn't think of herself as standing on the precipice on a dangerous pillar where there's nowhere to go. She doesn't view herself as alone or full of fear. She's embracing this unknown. She's embracing this point of, oh my God, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea where I'm headed. I have no idea what any of this means. So this card, to me, when it comes up, it's beckoning me to let go of the story that I'm holding, the story that I'm telling. So right now is a time to look at the stories that you're telling. Oh, I love you too, Aga. It's good to see you here. So yeah, let go of those stories. And now just jump and experience and know that you are held in divine light and love, always. So if perchance the meat suit, right? If perchance the meat suit becomes a problem, if perchance the meat suit no longer works, you know that your consciousness is free, is flowing, is excited and joyous, and it's time to take that leap of faith. Last question, Abbas. There are people we see or hang out for the first time, but we feel comfortable with them in a very short period. Is there more to that question? Are you asking why? So let's say you're that segment. You are that fiber pulp of orange. Right now, Abbas, you are a fiber pulp of orange, right? Well, when you meet other pulps that are from your wedge, you're going to be all like, oh, I totally remember butting up against you. And it's going to feel super comfortable and familiar the closer that pulp is to you. Now, the really fun part is when you start to realize that all the pulps that come from your wedge are pieces of you and you're a piece of them. And that's when you really get into much more unity consciousness. So, oh, good morning, Brittany. So yes, the people that you feel really comfortable with when you meet them, or the people that you feel drawn to, perhaps they're a wedge, they're part of your wedge, or perhaps they're a defining part of your wedge. Maybe they were the skin of that wedge, or, who knows? We can look at it in all kinds of terms and ways. Some people manifest here and just are bigger and more brighter and more full of energy. So perhaps a whole wedge is manifesting. Sometimes it feels like it's the whole friggin' orange. So different people are going to feel differently, and your connection to them is going to be more about how your soul, how your strand, your energy consciousness, your identification of self-peace, how did that relate to this other one? Now, let's say you meet somebody and all of a sudden it's like love at first sight, or I really don't like the whole twin flame concept. I think that that's really been misunderstood by a lot of people and misused. However, when you meet somebody and you think, oh my God, that's my twin flame. Oh, the feeling, it's so intense. It's so overwhelming. This is such a connection. That feeling, well, maybe you guys are the same pulp. everything that comes into the creation is polarized. So that's the nature of a law of this creation, is that things that come in are divided and polarized into their north and south pole, their positive and their negative, their masculine and their feminine. We have this duality that exists here. And I believe the whole point of this creation, is how do you come into wholeness with that division going on, with that, with the polarization that's occurring. So your question was, again, back to your question, was feeling comfortable with certain people. Some people you have contracts with. So you might be finding your other polarized self. You might be finding somebody you have contracts and agreements with that you're like, hey, okay, so look, this is what we have to accomplish. Okay, you go and you have this set up, and I'll go and I'll have this set up, and look, this is where they'll meet. So now when they meet, we're going to interchange our energy here. We're going to, at this point, do this exchange. And now the contract will become engaged. And then it's like this process. And sometimes people really do literally feel like a friendship is just being led, and they're kind of like on for the ride. You know, I've definitely had that happen many times. I've had these friendships and relationships that explode in this gigantic ball of creative energy, and we ride that ball, and then all of a sudden it's like the ball's gone and they're gone, and I'm like, whoa, what just happened? Our contracts have been completed. Our work together, what we came together to learn about, what we came together to express, what we came together to bring into the creation, it's done. So oftentimes, I think the big problem in our culture is that people tend to hold on after the contract is completed. We don't really teach people anymore how to maintain or work their energetic contracts with each other. So if you're finding yourself, and this is also part of that, following the signs, following what you're hearing, right? So if you're finding yourself just like, dude, the ball of energy is gone. The bottom has dropped out of this relationship. Well, it's time to let that bottom drop out, and don't try to hold on to it, and don't try to make it something that it's not. Now, if you're still actively engaged, you're still actively getting energy, you're still actively being triggered or challenged, maybe there's more lessons to be learned there. Not all lessons are fun and enjoyable. Not all pain is designed to make you stop doing something. Sometimes it's designed to make you see more clearly. Geez, I got really bright there. Let's see. God, the sun is not even shining through this window, you guys. I'm sorry. So let's see, Abbas. The spirituality focused on realization, this tiny little screen. The spirituality focuses on self-realization and self-love, but there's a chance for an ordinary person to become proud or selfish when Okay, so I'm going to try and finish that thought. But all of you guys, Abbas is just one of my students that I just absolutely love and adore. And I say student super loosely. He comes to me super rarely for advice. He's one of those just blessed people, young people in our creation right now that are coming in with lots of information. So I love that you're asking these questions. Thank you, Abbas. The spirituality focuses on self-realization and on self-love, but there's a chance for an ordinary person to become proud or selfish. So one of the things that is really challenging, and I say this loosely, I love it because all of this is leading into essentially what I wanted to talk about today. So I'll go back and look through whoever else had asked for a card pull, and if you would like a card pull tomorrow, go ahead and ask today. But I'm going to put the cards away while I answer this and use this as a great transition point into what I wanted to talk about today. So here's the deal. We have had many people over the course of the history. Let's just stick with recorded modern understanding of history. We'll look back like over the last 3,000 years. How about just before Christ? It could go back 4,000 or 5,000 years, depending if you want to look at Old Testament or, our religious documentation that we call religious. So when you're looking back in that time frame, we've had a lot of prophets, right? People who have been, a prophet essentially is one who is communicating, we would call that modernly a channel, right? A channel who's communicating with God. According to most religious belief systems, people are not directly communicating with God. They're communicating with an angel that is the communicator between God and the creation. I believe that a lot of that has to do with if God were to talk to itself, it would remember itself. That consciousness state, we would remember we're God if we're talking to God. And so the angelic consciousness is kind of an in-between state, a state that accepts its godliness, but comes into the creation to bring in the messages of God without the creation itself remembering itself, like not interfering with the experiment, right? Kind of like if we were raising, I just watched a documentary not too long ago about the California condors and the lengths that the humans go to in order to not let the condors become too familiarized with them or think in any way that the human is teaching them. So they'll wear puppets, bird puppet things, and have screens and blackouts, and so that those birds will never imprint or identify with humans as being in any way a part of their life. They will continue to work towards they will continue to develop and foster an independence from humanity, right? It's the same concept. We're doing the same thing God does to us. It's the same concept. So oftentimes we have prophets or visionaries or seers or holy people in our cultures who are talking about what the messages are coming from God. This is why no matter where you look in the world, religion is all pretty much the same concepts. The culture of the peoples where the religion is birthed is what impacts the messages, right? Those are the filters through which the message from God must come in. So let's say you are in I know a boss is Islamic. So, so he, your culture tells you Gabriel is the angel who's communicating and sharing the message. Now, when a person, I can speak for myself. How about that? My own personal experience. When I accepted that I was talking to consciousnesses, I quickly learned they were angelic. And I was really resistant to that because I was not raised in a Christian or Abrahamic religion of any sort. I was raised really loosely Buddhist, and more so just personal motivation to follow the spiritual practices and thought processes of that system. So I was super resistant to anything Christian, honestly. And if you know me, that's not surprising. And so when I first started waking up, I don't think we are puppets in the hand of God, Abbas, but I'll get back to that. When I started to wake up, I was being told through my pendulum, I used a pendulum to communicate with my guide, that my guide was an angel. And I was really resistant. I laughed at it. I was super dismissive of it. And then one day they kept breaking my pendulum because I wasn't listening. So one day I decided, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to have a conversation with this whatever it is. And I said, if you're really an angel, then I know you can manifest in physical form, and I want to see you. And so I sat at my chair, and this shimmering body appeared on my couch, and I knew there was no doubt that was an angel that I was talking to. But that wasn't the same voice I was hearing in my head. That wasn't the same messenger. He was just creating a space for me. Now, the message was coming through. That was God. And I actually resisted that too, because I thought, who am I to be hearing God? I don't even believe in God, right? And so I was working with my teacher, and she was like, "I'm sorry, I'm not hearing that at all. But what my angel is telling me is that's God talking to you, and that for some reason you're talking directly to God, and I don't know why." And she told me that's really uncommon to talk to the heart of God. Now, personally, I don't find it that uncommon. I've talked to so many of you, and so many of you are amazing, amazing workers, amazing consciousnesses, amazing pieces of the creation. And from what I feel and sense, I think a lot of us are talking to God. We just mistake it for our own consciousness, for a piece of ourselves. Now, when I started to talk to God and accept that, there's this really strange conflict that occurs in the ego of the self. You know, for me, I was always trying to not be seen, trying to hide. That's part of the weight, right? Like, don't look at me. I'm nothing to see. There's nothing to look at here. I'm hiding. So for me, it was extremely stressful and really challenging to accept that I was listening to God, that God was directing me, that God was talking to me. With others in the past, we see how it changes. If their ego is not in a depleted state like mine was, let's say they're in an overly inflated state of ego, well, they start talking to God, and then it's like it becomes, they become so big, right? That reinforces, see, I am special. They don't think everybody can be special. Everybody can have this. They think, well, this is, see, proof I am special. It proves and justifies and validates. Now, again, that path is perfect. It's perfect for them because they're going to show and illustrate to everybody else, this is what it looks like to be connected, grounded, connected to God, and full of yourself, right? So we're going to express in every possible way the creation, every aspect of it. It's all here. The challenge is not thinking it's bad, not thinking there's something wrong with that person who has an overinflated ego and sense of self because they're channeling God. What would it look like to love that part too? So we're going to see things out of balance, way over here in the I am God embodied ego. And we're going to see it way over here. I'm nothing. I'm just this little speck in this body that's going to die and be nothing. Because the balance is here, right? And we're polarized. So we're like, well, okay, let's see what the extremes are and let's find the balance in the middle. So thank those people for serving that extreme, because that allows you and frees you up to balance yourself a bit more. Thank them. Thank you for giving me that motion. Whoa, that's really awful. I'm coming back over here. Look at all the motion you had to get there. Super quick, super easy. Thank you for serving and showing me that's not how I want to walk as a piece of God in the creation. I hope that answered that question. So this is what I wanted to talk about. You know, today I entitled today's talk about facing the finger in your mirror. This ties in with the solstice energy that we're going through right now, because the solstice energy is, you know, this is our darkest time. This is the darkest time. We have the least exposure to our sun. If you're in the northern latitudes like me, it gets dark at 4 o'clock. You know, and it doesn't light up until 7 or 8. I think it was like 7:30, 7:20, 7:30 when the first rays of light started to peak up. And have some of my smiling coffee. So this is our dark time. Energetically, that's going to encourage us to go into our own darkness, our own subconscious, our own deep waters. And most of the people I've talked to are just feeling this kind of this natural effervescence of the things that they once thought of as really damaging thoughts or painful memories. They're just kind of bubbling up to the surface, not painfully, but there. Some are suffering, some are really feeling the pain of it, especially if there's a lot stored there. But it's just bubbling up and releasing right now. That's part of the solstice energy that's supporting you with that. One part. Another part is this transition that we're all going through right now, collectively. But the facing the finger in the mirror. I keep coming back to that because I do want to talk about this. One of my workshops It's called Breaking Through Your Mirrors. And it's designed to really help you focus in and target on what you've externalized of yourself. Now, right now, all the stuff that we're releasing, we are going to be getting triggered by the people that come to us. And I think right now this is really pretty obvious to a lot of people. You know, somebody pops up that you don't like maybe, or that you've known in the past and had struggles with. God, I've had my exes contacting me. These people that you had conflicted relationships with or formed conflicting beliefs about yourself with are coming up in different ways, in unexpected ways and unavoidable ways, part of the following the signs. And we are having to confront the truths inside of ourselves that we hold as a result of the beliefs that we've formed, the decisions that we've made in those relationships, whether they're childhood relationships or adult relationships. So one of the things that I find people struggle with the most is this concept of the law of attraction, of like attracts like. Because when we are interacting with somebody who's upsetting to us, we look at this person and we're like, you're nothing like me. You're nothing like me. And I don't treat people that way. I don't need to see that I'm behaving that way. I don't behave that way. So here's what I've found. What I have found is that when you have a finger at somebody and you're like, I don't like the way you're behaving, your negativity, your blah, 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 whatever it may be, when you've got that finger out and you consciously, subconsciously, physically, emotionally, when you're pointing out the problems that you see in another person and believing that that problem is what is creating, that's separate, that's not me, that's not how I behave, that's not what I do, you're separating yourself from that person, from that experience. And so they try to reconcile that experience with the law of attraction, which we learn about in a lot of, it's metaphysical communities talk about it a lot. And the law of attraction states you're drawing to you exactly what the likeness, that like attracts like. This is bringing it in. Now, what I'm finding as we work on these issues is that seeing that other person as a part of yourself is so challenging because we've already rejected that part of ourselves. We already told ourselves that if we were to behave or act or embody that in any way, we would be unlovable, we would be unworthy, we would be unvaluable, we would be a bad person. So I am not allowed to be that way. And we reject that part. It's kind of like we cut out one of those little orange segments, one of those little pulp fibers from ourself, and put it outside of ourselves, outside of our wedge of ourself. And we're like, you're a bitter, bitter pulp. And only sweet pulp gets to be in this wedge. You're out. So those people who are coming to you, they are attracted to that little pulp that's sitting out there all alone, shriveling up, dying, lacking energy, lacking protection, lacking love. That's what they're drawn to, not you. Yeah, you're right. You don't behave that way to anybody outside of you, but you do to you. So if you're angry with somebody else for behaving in such a way, let's say, oh, Connie joined. Hi, Connie. We had this conversation actually about politics. So let's say what you're angry at, and this is just popping in my head, so it's easy, and I'm going to say it. You're angry at Trump. You know, you're angry that he got elected. That here's this man who has no compassion, who has no awareness of what he's saying, who speaks out of his bum, whatever. You're angry at him, and you can't believe, and you're so angry that this person is out there, that anyone who supports him, you're angry with them too. Like, how can you? You're embodying, you accept that, whatever it may be. Now, let's say you've got this example of what it looks like to be compassionless, to be self-focused, to the extreme, to the point of rejection of others, a willingness to compromise on others' needs in order for your own. Now, let's look at your life. how you treat you. Take away everybody else in the equation. Do you make time for you? Do you give yourself permission to tell another who needs your support, who needs your help, if you're down, no? Or do you stretch yourself thin to the point where you're exhausted or you're lacking in resources for yourself or for your immediate needs because you've overextended yourself in meeting the needs of others? Is that something that you do? So have you rejected compassion for you? So that's what's being highlighted, is the part of you that says, don't I matter too? Don't I get a say too? Can I be as important to you as you've made everyone else? Because look, this guy, he makes himself the most important. See, look. And so that's why it's knocking at your door, to help you see that part of yourself that doesn't give you permission to have compassion for self. It's showing you an imbalance in self. So when we get engaged, when we get triggered, when we, and I'm not free of this, mind you, this is speaking from personal experience. My finger wags, like I'm working on it too. I'm right there with you guys. But when we find ourselves with our finger out and we're saying, this is yours, this is your problem, this is how you do it, this is how you behave, stop and thank that person for showing up with all their little protester signs, all surrounding your little pulp piece, saying, look at this pulp, are you gonna let it in? Can you still be lovable if that one bitter piece of pulp is in there? Because you know what happens when one pulp is bitter and is surrounded by sweet pulp? It makes the sweet not so syrupy. So one of the things I tell people, and I work with people, and I work with myself on, is how do I marble the bitter, marble the darkness through myself? How do I incorporate it to the point where it's not this one big chunk inside me, but it's a piece that's within the whole, and I accept. And that brings us back to the unity consciousness, right? We come back into, we're all one thing. I contain all of it. I can be selfish. I can be giving and generous. I can be compassionate. I can be obtuse, right? I have all of it within me, but can I love me for all of it? Can I love me when I disappoint another? Can I still be worthy because I took care of me and not them first? Can I be worthy if I fall in love with myself? I believe that's the whole point of this creation, is to find a way to love ourselves and to forgive ourselves for separating ourselves up. And originally from separating from source, which comes back to the original conversation topic in these shows, the separation wound. So today's meditation, we've got about 15 minutes left. We're going to do a meditation on your finger pointing. Now this is a part of my Breaking Through the Mirrors workshop. And so if you feel like you want to take this and go further with it, contact me and we can talk about doing more in-depth work. For me right now, since we're doing this as a show, this is going to be a quick kind of incorporation of this concept. And I think that most of you will be able to just take it and run with it. So we're not going to bring up a deep, super painful, really conflicted relationship right now, okay? I would really recommend you don't choose that as your relationship to focus on. I'd rather you did that with support and not in a rushed setting. So, and we'll stay on longer if we need to. All right, so I'm going to have a sip of my coffee. I want you to check how you're sitting. Make sure you're comfortable. Hi, Letitia. You're just in time for the meditation. Okay. Feel your body in your chair, or if you're laying down. Feel the parts of your body that are touching your chair, touching the floor. Make sure you're comfortable. I'm going to kind of move around a little bit and get in a good space because there's stuff down here. And begin to take notice of your breath. And as you breathe in this present moment, feeling the air going into the body. And as you exhale, release this morning. Breathing in this present moment, feeling the temperature and the smells in the air. And as you exhale, release what you have to do after you're done here. Just let go, it'll all be there waiting for you. Breathing in, present moment, all the way down into the root, breathing in. And exhale, releasing all expectations and judgments of yourself in this moment. Let's do another one of those, breathing in, present moment. And as you exhale, releasing expectations and judgments of yourself. Breathe with focus. When you feel a tone come through as you're breathing, when it feels like I need to make this sound, make it. Okay, that's toning. It brings in that vibrational frequency into the body and allows it to release something more deeply. So, breathing in, present moment. Now I know that's my lowest note, so that's my root chakra that I'm releasing from as I'm feeling the urge to make that sound. So we'll do one more because the breath is still catching, so some of us are still releasing. Much better. Now notice how already your feet and your seat are feeling tingly and vibrational. Gaia's right there, ready for you, already having received your roots. Feel that grounded energy coming up through the body. For those of you who've been doing this with me for a long time, you're already grounded and connected. Just let this show you any areas as the energy comes up where you struggle with judgment of self, or where rejected pieces are missing from in the self. Just allow that to be shown as you bring that Gaia energy up through the body. Ooh, that already started moving some stuff. Bringing it up through those feet and legs and that seat up into the abdomen as you're breathing in. And exhaling. The energy comes up more into the middle of the abdomen, solar plex. Personal powers are going to be a lot of this, a big part of this. Bringing it up into the chest, heart and lung space. There's a lot of missing love, isn't there? Thank the body for showing us this emptiness inside of our heart and let it know we're going to start bringing in those pieces. Make that agreement with the self. I'm going to start finding myself and falling in love with every little piece I find, no matter how bitter. Feel how the energy is starting to flow again, coming up through the heart, through the shoulders, and I'm going to be able to show my love for myself in all ways as I fall in love with my reflections in the mirrors around me. Even those that scare me, even those I want to turn away from, I'll find why, the source, the beauty, what I can gain, what I can learn from this. Feeling that energy coming up into the throat. See, we don't get so stuck when we just thank it and allow. Big release. Feeling that energy coming up through the head, into the crown. Good. Feel that crown opening up as you project that consciousness back. Allow it effortlessly and gracefully, just like the communication travels down the lines, the telephone lines. It doesn't think about where it's going. It just flows. Follow the flow of your line as you go all the way up into source. Feel yourself penetrate through that skin, that peel of that consciousness boundary. Good. And keep going all the way into the heart of source. Now these communication lines are two-way. As you stay with your consciousness up in source, I want you to direct that consciousness, source consciousness energy, that source energy, crystalline and all-encompassing, down your line. So it's filling you, coming back into the body, filling all the spaces, the voids, creating the perfect opening grounds for the pieces to come back in. They're guiding me on a different exercise. Great. So, now I want you to take note of the vessel of these void spaces. Imagine that you can see in front of you a blueprint, like a holographic image of yourself. And imagine that these void spaces are little orange pulps, and they're being shown to you, highlighted with this golden liquid energy, not for their darkness, not for their wounding, but for a space of allowance, for a space of uncovering, a space of discovery of self. Now I want you to begin to call up around you all the pieces that you have lost along the way, all the pieces that you have rejected of yourself. Imagine these little shards like a magnet, whether they're with somebody else, a piece of yourself you gave away, a piece that was taken away, a piece that broke in your pain. Start calling all of those pieces back to yourself, just like you're a broken vase and you're searching through your creation for all the shards. Bring in all of those pieces and allow them to effortlessly and gracefully find their homes. Bringing them into the whole, allowing them to fit together. Now I want you to call in even the little chips and fragments and the dust that's dissipated, even the tiniest specks of yourself that anywhere have been left behind from a breaking that have burst out as a result. All fragments, all shards, all specks of your dust. Bring it into the whole and allow it to fill the spaces in between these cracks, these fractures. If you need to adjust the body during this time, do so. You'll find a lot of cracks, adjustments, realignments. My whole spine just popped. Now feel how it's kind of tenuous. It's there, it's whole, this vessel of you. It's suddenly looking so whole. Now I want you to imagine that you have this golden forge, and you've got a bucket full of liquid golden energy, just like melted pure gold. And pour that through your crown into that vessel. So the vessel is completely full of gold, and the gold is seeping through those cracks, through those fissures. It's absorbing all of the dust and the fragments and the pieces as it does so. And it's seeping out, so there's just this golden beads lining the cracks. You can just see it seeping through. And now I want you to take that vessel and imagine that it's in the forge of your life, your creation, your expression. And let yourself bring up that pain, that suffering that you felt when those cracks occurred. Let yourself bring up that rage at the experiences that you've been subjected to. Let that passion to change and shift and grow your life be the forge. Be the fire that is heating your pot, heating it until that gold and that pot are one, until molecularly they have fused and become one thing, one vessel, one whole, beautifully mended and brought together vessel, created not to be what it originally was, but what it was forged into. Allow it to be what has been forged and find a way to love it. What does your vessel do? Does it hold things? Does it display things? Is it a mirror? Is it a container? Just explore it. Don't tell it what it should be or what it doesn't do. What does it do? Play with this. Stay in this state as long as you want. This is a perfect state to get to know yourself. I'm going to go ahead and sign off, but I'll see you tomorrow. And I would love to hear about your vessels. Go into our group, Healing Pathwalkers, and tell me about your vessel. Love you guys.